Hi everyone, welcome to Judicial Watch's update here on social media. I'm Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Thanks for joining us this week. Is some big documents out of the IRS as a result of Judicial Watch FOIA litigation. These documents show that a top McCain staffer suggested that Lois Lerner's IRS engage in financially ruinous audits of political groups. It's pretty unbelievable stuff. I'm going to get into the details here. So what was going on is that the IRS in 2013, just a few weeks before it was exposed that they were targeting conservative and Tea Party groups with suppression by asking too many questions in their questionnaires, in their applications, in a way that were questions that were both invasive and unnecessary, and stalling and delaying the approval of those applications. Just 2 weeks before, we have documents showing there was a meeting with top IRS officials, between top IRS officials and Senate officials in Senate staffers for Senator Carl Levin, who's a Democrat from Michigan, and Senator John McCain, who is the Republican senator from Arizona. And these staffers browbeat Lois Lerner and top IRS officials over their regulation of 501c4 groups, basically political groups. The background on this is that Democrats and people like John McCain, who have been on the side of the left in terms of regulating government speech, were furious when the Citizens United case came down. You may recall President Obama attacked the Supreme Court to its face during a State of the Union address over the Citizens United decision, which was a 5-4 decision that upheld the First Amendment on the encroachments by the McCain-Feingold bill that would have regulated the speech of entities engaged in political advocacy or talking about candidates and government officials. So they were furious at that. So they thought of ways around that, especially certainly from the Democratic perspective in the 2010-2012 elections, where they didn't want Tea Party groups and other Republican-oriented groups, or so they thought, participating in the elections in a way that would have harmed their ability to keep and maintain and obtain power. So this is what the background is on all of that. So they were pressuring the IRS, the Obama gang was pressuring the IRS, Senator Levin was pressuring the IRS, and now it looks like Senator McCain, through this staffer, was pressuring the IRS. So we had reported on this meeting, the fact that it took place back in 2015 initially, and the notes of the meeting seemingly were redacted. But subsequently, in the tens of thousands of pages that we have gotten since then and around then, we found the notes. And the notes of the meeting are pretty extraordinary, because the staff director for McCain at the time, and Mr. Henry Kerner, said to Miss Lois Lerner and the other staffers, you should include, let's see, they're talking about 501c4 groups, audit so many that it becomes financially ruinous. Audit so many that it becomes financially ruinous. And they didn't get any pushback from the IRS about it, other than the fact that it was maybe not within they didn't have the budget to do so. And I'll give you the full context. Henry Kerner, let me turn my glasses on. Henry Kerner asked how to get to the abuse of organizations claiming Section 501c4, but designed to be primarily political. Lois Lerner said the system works, but not in real time. Henry Kerner, again, this is the McCain staffer, noted that these organizations don't disclose donors, which is their right under the First Amendment. Lois Lerner said if they don't meet the requirements, we can come in and revoke, but it doesn't happen timely. Nan Marks, who's another IRS official, said if the concern is that organizations engaging in this activity don't disclose donors, then the system doesn't work. Well, they're bureaucrats. They're just supposed to follow the law, not try to go work around it through regulations. Henry Kerner said that maybe the solution is to audit so many that it is financially ruinous. Again, Henry Kerner, the minority staff director for John McCain on his committee, said that maybe the solution is to audit so many that it is financially ruinous. Nicole, who is Nicole Flax, who was the then chief of staff, I think to the commissioner, noted that we have budget constraints. Elise Bean, who was the Democrat staff member from the Senate, suggested using a list of organizations that made independent expenditures. Lois Lerner said that it was her job to oversee it all, not just political campaign activity. None of that is reassuring, obviously. So who is this Henry Kerner? Well, now he is the special counsel to the Office of Special Counsel in the Trump administration. He was nominated, approved by the Senate, and now is the top ethics officer in the deep state for the Trump administration. And he's telling the IRS to engage in financially ruinous audits. Now, thankfully, this whole scandal was exposed just a few weeks later after this meeting, because it was in May, I think, of the middle of May of 2013 that it was exposed, and this meeting took place on April 30th. And as I said, we didn't have the notes, but we did note that the meeting took place, and based on other documents at the time, that the IRS saw that it was under pressure from both Senator Levin and Senator Levin and Senator McCain. And when we issued the release, Senator McCain got upset because people interpreted this pressure as Senator McCain being on the side of the IRS targeting Tea Party groups. Well, that was the practical effect when you say audit all the C4 groups. And McCain's press release was, and I'll read you the first lines from 3 years ago. Senator John McCain released the following statement on false reports claiming that his office was somehow involved in IRS targeting of conservative groups. And he's saying, well, he didn't know they were specifically targeting the Tea Party. But his staff director was telling the IRS to engage in financially ruinous audits, which was outrageously improper, and everyone knows the groups at issue at that time were the Tea Party groups. Republican-oriented groups, conservative-oriented groups, the opposition to the Obama regime. Henry Kerner, as I said, is now a top official in the Trump administration, and I can't tell you how significant this release is because it shows the bipartisan nature of the IRS scandal. There were, everyone suspected there were many Republicans who were happy to have the Tea Party suppressed by the IRS. And then you had Republicans like John McCain who had this fanatical hatred for private participation in the political sphere by corporations and individuals, anyone with money. He didn't like the idea of campaign contributions that were unlimited or were so-called dark money. He wanted the government to regulate through the McCain-Feingold law all sorts of speech. Because you may recall, he was caught up in a scandal, the Keating 5 scandal, and he was burned by that, and he faced significant challenges back home in Arizona, and like most incumbents, he got upset. He thought the solution to the corruption, evidently, that he and his fellow senators may have been involved in was to have the government regulate the people as opposed to his regulating his own behavior and making it more difficult for anyone to challenge incumbents by making it impossible virtually for them to raise money effectively to challenge incumbents. That's what this campaign finance debate was largely about. You know, it's funny because Lois Lerner and other documents that we had uncovered acknowledged this because she was getting pressure not only from Levin, but also Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who's a Democrat from Rhode Island, who wanted them to prosecute these groups. Again, put them in jail. And Lois Lerner said, you know, this is all about the 501c4s, these so-called political groups, and regulating their political activity. Now, the background on this is that 501c4 groups are groups that can come out and talk about issues and people running for office as long as the majority of their activity isn't that. So the Obama IRS and people like McCain and others tried to come around and change the rules after they lost at Citizens United. And they tried to use the IRS to regulate these groups out of existence or suppress their operations or jail them. But that's the Obama IRS scandal. And the IRS also was working with the FBI and the Justice Department to figure out ways to prosecute the very groups that Lerner's IRS was suppressing. The FBI obtained the IRS files of virtually every 501c4 organization. It was Judicial Watch, our team, that uncovered that. They had to return all those files. Who was running the FBI at the time? Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller's FBI was collaborating with Lois Lerner's IRS and Obama's DOJ to figure out ways to jail President Obama's political opponents and people who were on the wrong side of this ideological debate about campaign finance spending. Outrageous.